You know, there are some places on this planet that just inspire both total awe and complete fear. Mount Everest, well, it's right at the top of that list. For some, it's the ultimate achievement, a symbol of human willpower. But for so many others, it's the place where that ambition took its very last breath. So, let's get into it. Let's explore the stories of the world's highest and maybe its most silent graveyard.
First, you got to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this thing. We're talking 8,848 meters. That's over 29,000 feet, punching straight up into the jet stream. It is quite literally the highest point on Earth, a massive frozen giant. But, a number like that, as mind-boggling as it is, it really only tells you half of the story.
Because this number tells the other half. Over 300 people have died trying to climb this mountain, and many of them are still there, frozen exactly where they fell, like silent statues marking the true cost of chasing the top of the world.
And that quote right there just nails it, doesn't it? It gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Everest is this place of total contrast. It's a magnet for our biggest dreams, but it's also a monument to how fragile we really are. It's a dream that, for too many, becomes a permanent, frozen nightmare.
So, where did this deadly legacy even begin? Well, for that, we have to go all the way back to the very first great mystery, to the two men who you could call the mountain's founding ghosts, George Mallory and Andrew Irvine.
I mean, just think about this for a second. It's 1924. They're wearing tweed jackets, using gear that looks ancient to us now, and they just go for it. They were last spotted just a few hundred meters from the top, moving strong, and then a storm rolled in and swallowed them whole. Gone. For 75 years, nobody knew what happened. Then, in 1999, they found Mallory's body. But the one thing they didn't find? The picture of his wife that he promised he would leave on the summit. So the big question remains, did they make it? It's a secret the mountain is still keeping.
But here's the thing about Everest. The danger doesn't just wait for you up near the peak. Oh no, it starts almost right away, at what they call the gateway to the upper mountain, the Khumbu Icefall. It's this constantly moving, cracking, chaotic maze of ice.
The icefall has a truly grim history that just shows you the raw, impersonal power of this place. In 1970, a huge chunk of ice just collapsed, burying 6 Sherpas. Then in 2014, a single ice column broke off, killing 16 Sherpas, the worst single disaster for their community. And just a year later, in 2015, an earthquake sent an avalanche ripping right through base camp itself, killing 19 people. It's a brutal, brutal reminder that the mountain really doesn't care who you are.
All right, so if you make it past the icefall, the challenges change. It becomes less about the ice shifting beneath your feet and more about the air, or lack thereof, above your head. We're now entering the most notorious part of the entire climb, the death zone.
Okay, so let's be really clear about what this means. Above 8,000 meters, there is not enough oxygen in the air to sustain human life. Period. Your body is, quite literally, dying. Your brain is starved, your digestion grinds to a halt. Every single minute you spend up there, the clock on your survival is ticking down, faster and faster. It's just not a place humans are built to survive.
And in this zone, just making it to the summit doesn't mean you've won. Far from it. Take Hannelore Schmatz. In 1979, she made it to the top, an incredible achievement. But on the way back down, completely exhausted, she just sat down to rest for a moment and never got back up. For years, her body remained right there, a frozen warning that the mountain is often most dangerous on the descent.
And then, of course, there's the weather. In 1986, out of nowhere, a vicious blizzard slams the North Face, trapping several teams. At least 8 people died. Their survivors came back with these chilling stories of seeing things, strange lights in the snow, hearing voices in the wind, as the lack of oxygen and the sheer terror started playing tricks on their minds.
Which brings us to probably the most infamous disaster in Everest history. The 1996 tragedy is this perfect, awful example of how a bunch of small delays and one bad turn in the weather can create an absolute catastrophe. Delays on the way to the summit meant teams were caught way too high on the mountain when a blizzard hit with incredible force. By the next morning, 8 people, including 2 of the best guides in the world, were dead. And out of that disaster came one of the most gut-wrenching moments imaginable. The guide, Rob Hall, was stranded near the summit. He knew he wasn't going to make it down, but he managed to get one last call through on his radio to his pregnant wife back in New Zealand, and those were his final words to her. It's just a heartbreaking reminder of the real people, the real families behind these stories.
But you know, the dangers on Everest aren't just physical. Up there, in that thin, unforgiving air, climbers face these incredible moral choices. When your own body is shutting down, when you're fighting for every breath, what do you do when you see someone else in trouble?
One of the victims of that same 1996 storm was a climber named Sawang Paljor. He tried to take shelter in a small rock cave, and he died there. For the next 20 years, his body, easily identifiable by his bright green climbing boots, became a landmark, a grim, unavoidable marker that other climbers had to literally step over to get to the summit.
Then, a decade later, the unthinkable happened. Another climber, a man named David Sharp, was in that exact same cave, freezing to death. And here is the truly chilling part. Over 30 other climbers walked right past him, some on their way up, some on their way down. Most did nothing, maybe thinking he was the original Green Boots, or maybe just deciding that a rescue was impossible. He died there, all alone.
And this leads to a question that is just brutal. And there's no easy answer. Up there, where every single step is a fight for your own survival, what is your duty to another person? What do you owe a stranger? It's a question the climbing community is still wrestling with today.
So, let's fast forward to today. You'd think with modern gear, better weather forecasting, Everest might be safer, right? Well, not exactly. The mountain has found new ways to be deadly. And it turns out one of the biggest dangers is us.
Yeah, in 2019, this picture went viral and shocked the world. It's a traffic jam, a line of people waiting to get to the summit in the death zone. And these delays were fatal. 11 climbers died that season, not in some heroic battle with a storm, but from simple exhaustion and exposure while they were stuck, waiting in a queue.
And what this really shows us is something pretty stark. While the specific challenges have changed, the lethal result hasn't. In 1924, the challenge was primitive gear against the raw elements. In 2019, the challenge was overcrowding and human bottlenecks. The result in both cases? Death. The mountain's total indifference is the one constant killer.
And this isn't something that's stopped. This cycle just keeps going. As recently as 2023, the headlines were filled with the same tragic stories. Avalanches, climbers collapsing from exhaustion, people just disappearing. All our modern technology, it helps, but it can't conquer a force of nature this powerful.
So after hearing all this, what do we actually take away? Well, first, that nature does not care about your ambition. It doesn't negotiate. Second, there's a razor-thin line between courage and recklessness, and Everest is the place that reveals it. The mountain itself isn't evil. It's just there. It's indifferent. We're the ones who bring our dreams and all of our human vulnerabilities right to its slopes.
And in the end, for every triumphant photo on the summit, for every flag planted, that wind whipping through the prayer flags is also whispering the countless stories of all those who never came home. Their stories are a permanent part of the mountain's haunting, silent legacy.
Everest is just one of these incredible places that test that fragile line between human dreams and the harsh realities of nature. If you find these kinds of true stories fascinating, and you want to explore more tales of survival, of mystery, and the limits of the human spirit, make sure you subscribe. We break down a new one every single week. Thanks for tuning in.